So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Anthony.
Thanks. So I want to take you through a visual journey of hand-painted signs around New Orleans. This story starts post-Katrina. I moved back in town. Actually, I got back Mardi Gras Day, 2006, at 4 in the morning, and did Mardi Gras that day. And yeah, that day I was doing skeleton crew with my friend Chris, who I've been friends with. Worked at a t-shirt shop for a long time, and after Katrina, relationship kind of got Katrinaed is the verb I used. I was kind of depressed. Chris had been scooting around town on his Vespa, taking pictures of different things, po' boys, whatnot. And he introduced me to Flickr, which got me into taking pictures of myself around town. So one of the first sets that I did were these don't have your dog poop in our yard signs. So other things we were getting into were street art. We found some of the similar art by artists around town that found out their names and tracked them down and just kept looking for all their art around town. A couple of artists we found were Reader, You Go Girl, and other things I would take pictures of around town was just the decay after Katrina. Just like the cat's claw taking over houses, buildings empty, sitting empty, storm damaged. And some of the places were, there was the decay and the street art, kind of mixed that. And then I started doing my own art stuff. So I did You Next. That was kind of my skeleton crew name. I'd paint things around town, like take off the base covers, take it home, put it back. One of the projects I was doing, looking at the different businesses that had gone out of business after Katrina or before Katrina, some of them, and doing a smashed can project called Gurn, which is gone in the New Orleans Yat accent. So I'd paint a can like in the same as the logo for the business and staple it to a phone pole close to the business. And find outsider art around New Orleans. But then I started taking pictures of hand-painted signs around town, just very unique things. And this is probably one of the first ones that I found around town. And so I was riding my bike all over the city, just looking for different stuff, just documenting decay, documenting signs, just interesting things. Some of these two signs, these two buildings have the Katrina line. You can see like on the cut meat, the Katrina line goes through the words cut meat. The Katrina line means the flood line. So that's how high the flood waters were at that building. And so Chris and I, we would go out biking. He would sometimes, Vesper on his own. I didn't have a Vesper, but we'd bike around town, see similar signs. So we started seeing signs by this one painter that would do block lettering, kind of script stuff together. We find more signs by him. More script and block lettering together. Then eventually, I was biking around and found this at one of the housing projects, and there was two names, Lester Carey and John Cannon, with the style that we had found all around town. So that was like huge for us. We'd been looking, who was doing all these signs, and finally I found this sign. And started doing some research, trying to look up Lester Carey, John Cannon. Went to the Tulane Special Collections, looking at the city directory. found out that some addresses that Lester had lived at around, but that was before Katrina, so went there. Those places were totally empty. But so after that, once I had a name, we created a Flickr group called the Society to Preserve the Art of Lester Carey, SPALK. And kept taking pictures, kept trying to track down these artists. So I was biking around different places, went to corner stores where these signs were painted, would ask inside, auto body shops. This is a tire shop, and I was out on the morning of Good Friday, just biking around, decided to get up, get an early start, take pictures, and Junior, this guy Junior, is sitting outside the tire shop where these signs were painted, and asked him if he knew the artist. And he said, "Oh yeah, I know Lester. He's right over there across the street. Go check out Keller Market." And I go inside. Lo and behold, there's Lester with a milk crate of paints and a sign that says artist. So talk to him. Call my friend Chris. He comes and meets us. We take a tour around the neighborhood. Lester shows us different corner stores, different buildings that he's painted in the area, and several things that we hadn't found yet. So it was exciting to have a personal tour by the artist himself. And we learned that Lester was homeless at this point. So you can see he's collecting cans and he has his artist bag there. And also seen signage by other artists around town. A couple of these had pictures of very, very similar things. So we tried to figure out who painted those as well. Then in 2008, I decided that I was going to apply for the preservation program at Tulane. One of my coworkers at the library, so I'd started working at the Tulane library just after Katrina. One of my coworkers was doing the program or just finished the preservation program. So this is my application, the visual part of my application. I actually wanted to read my application. I'd been a resident of New Orleans for almost 17 years after moving from Memphis. I moved to New Orleans for graduate school, but Tulane was the only school to which I applied because I wanted to move to New Orleans. After a few family vacation trips to New Orleans in high school and college, I was charmed by the city. I'd always been fascinated by the architecture here, but usually only thought about the more well-known architecture in the French Quarter, along St. Charles Avenue, shotgun houses, etc. After Katrina, I had become more aware of so many other types of architecture in many different parts of the city. Corner stores, bars, lounges, schools designed by E.A. Christie, etc. While biking around town, I often take pictures of wonderful buildings and interesting neighborhoods. Unfortunately, much of that I see is in decay due to flood damage, fire, neglect, cat's claw, etc. I've also realized that the importance of preserving buildings also helps to preserve neighborhoods, which helps to preserve the New Orleans culture. Unique New Orleans traditions such as jazz funerals, second lines, and Mardi Gras Indians have strong ties to the neighborhood's community. The people that participate in these traditions need to be able to come back to the neighborhoods that keep the traditions alive. Not only do historic buildings help preserve beautiful or unique architecture or provide space for residences or businesses, the buildings also serve as canvas of art. Many corner stores around the city have wonderful folk art as advertising, much of it created by Lester Carey. His unique style incorporates the different lettering styles and often a painting of a po' boy. In addition to photography, I'm interested in several other artistic venues. These include printmaking. I'm also a member of the Skeleton Crew, a group that makes masks for Mardi Gras. Street art, stencils, stickers, we paste. And one project that I'm currently have going on is at the Gurn can set, which I pay tribute to the New Orleans businesses that are gone, that ain't there no more. So that's my application for preservation. That summer, also took a screen printing class, and this is after I'd met Lester, so I want to pay tribute to like where I'd met him and some of his signs. And I guess this is probably the first example of art, other than photography, of documenting the signage. And then in the preservation program, I wrote a paper about Lester's signage around town. But while I was writing this paper, I was uploading some images into the paper, and this is one that I use. And I noticed that in the bottom corner, I don't know if you can see it back there, but it says "by Pam," and that opened up a whole other world. Like, oh, here's another style we got to find. And I have like several pictures of this style. So look at some other pictures, find out that there's several pictures that the sign painter had done for the city, like auction signs for buildings, the Mardi Gras stands at Gallery Hall. So I did some research, trying to find sign painter, City Hall, or sign painter, New Orleans, and finally came across her name, Pam Collins. Also found another similar style around town. And I would see this at different businesses. And one of the businesses was the Ferret service station. The sign painter was redoing the sign outside. So I went inside, asked whoever was working, like, do they know the sign painter? I said, yeah, I think it's this guy, lives over on Willow Street, not too far away. Go check over there. So I see this house. I see some signage that looks like his style on it. He's not there that day, but come back and like, there he is, hanging out with some friends, and get to meet him. And so this is Thomas White, or Unc. He was Uncle Tom, Unc. So met him, got to know him, learned his story. The sign painter that was painting for the city found her signage outside this corner store, Rainbow Grocery, uptown on Magazine Street. So I went inside, asked the owner here if he knew the sign painter. Lo and behold, he had her business card. Incredible. So gave me the perfect way to get in touch with Pam. So called her, met her. Here's some of her city signage. I actually took the one that's on the ground. Here she is painting the Mardi Gras stands in front of Gallery Hall. So Gallery Hall is the old city hall in New Orleans, and this is where like the mayor watches the parades from. So also I was taking pictures of other buildings around town, doing research. And also at this point I was doing research for a thesis on hand-painted signs around New Orleans. And I discovered one photograph while I was researching in the Louisiana Digital Library by Rawson Crawford that had some signage in it, and is also very similar to some pictures that I had taken. So I discovered that actually Tulane had the full collection of Rawson Crawford's photography. So I went through every single photograph in our collection, which was 786 photos, and found lots more photos with signage in the background or buildings that I've seen around town. So I did a then and now photo essay. The top left, the Magnolia Supermarket. That's a place that I took pictures of very often. Lester Carey's signage was there. I think some of the Lester's sign on the red building there. Also down on the bottom right, that's one of Lester's signs for a church that Rawson Crawford had photographed when it was a different building, but same church. And also while I was doing research for my thesis, I was looking at people that documented signs around the country. Came across people in Cleveland, in Atlanta, and Las Vegas. So, and the person that started this thing called a website called Vegas Vernacular. He'd also lived in Memphis, and I'm from Memphis, and he'd also documented some signs in Memphis. But they were doing a lot of the same things. I was interested in documenting hand-painted signs around Las Vegas. So with their website, Vegas Vernacular, I was inspired to like come up with like some catchy name myself. So I used the alliteration, took off the verb part of vernacular and made it NOLA Nacular. So that's where I got my inspiration for the name NOLA Nacular. Also around the same time in 2013, my friend Jack that owns Defend New Orleans, which is started off as like a small t-shirt company. Now they have, I think, two stores in town now. He had bought a screen print that I did of the fresh meat, cold beer, wine, liquor, po' boy sign at some market that I did a while ago. And he asked me if we could do a t-shirt collaboration for Defend New Orleans. And yeah, we worked on that and worked on another one, the seafood chicken plates. So these two came out in the 2013, and the fresh meat one was a hit. They did reprints of that quite a bit. Also in 2013, there were some movie makers doing a documentary film called Sign Painters. And that movie was brought to Tulane by one of the art teachers there. So I gathered up all the sign painters that I met, Pam and Tom and Lester, and took them to the screening so they could enjoy that. And in 2014, Gambit did a cover story about the sign painters. So this is Cheryl Gerber, the photographer for Gambit, taking some photos of the three sign painters. And here's Lester, cover star. So when I showed him this, he was very impressed, very excited to see this. And I gave him several copies of this. And also, I'd been documenting other sign painters around town. Found some names. This one, Charles Otis, I'd gotten his name, actually talked to him on the phone once. Found out that he was in a band that played on Frenchman Street every Monday night. But unfortunately, I never went down there to meet him and still haven't. I need to go back and try to call him again. I've seen some newer stuff, so I think he's still around. A couple signs I found had a name, Carrie Williams. Unfortunately, when I called this number, it wasn't working. Another sign painter that I found around town, mostly auto body shops and out east in the junkyards. One person that I asked, his name might have been James Moore, but never got any more information about him. So I was never able to track him down. And then this is another style. At first, I thought, before I'd like really studied the different styles, I thought this might have been Miss Pam's style. It was very similar. She uses the asterisks and kind of two-colored shadow style. But after I looked more and more, I could see that there was a difference between this style and Miss Pam's. But never got a name for this artist. In 2014, I was invited to do a Pechacucha. If you're not familiar with Pechacucha, it's a quick slide presentation where you do, 40 slides for 40 seconds each?
Oh, yeah.
So I talked about, so the theme was what I do for fun. So I talked about biking around, taking pictures, of course, of signage, street art, whatnot. So that was like, I guess, my first presentation on signage. And it was very fast, 40 seconds, boom, boom, boom. And then I started doing some lino cuts of some corner stores that I had taken photos of, decided that I wanted to document some of the empty buildings, the empty corner stores, the decaying ones around in different neighborhoods of the city. On the right, the top one was in the Holly Grove neighborhood, Lil Wayne's neighborhood. If you're familiar with Lil Wayne. The one in the middle is in Mid-City, and the one on the bottom is in Central City. And I also did like even smaller versions. So these were like 8x10s. I did 4x6 versions also. I met a couple people from Atlanta. They were doing a book about New Orleans and hanging out. And, told them about the sign painters around town. So they wanted one of the painters to do a logo for their book, and the release party that they were eventually going to have in New Orleans. So here's Tom with the Cashew Company logo that he painted for them. And here's the book. And there was a spread about Tom in the book. I did a small interview, and there was a 2-page or 4-page spread of my photos of his signs in there too. And here's a lino cut that I did of a food truck that I printed out on some cheaper paper and had Tom to embellish it with some of the different signs that he might do on a food truck. So this is just a little animation of that. And also with the sign painters, I'd help them get commissions with different friends that or acquaintances that contact me through either Facebook or Flickr or Instagram. So here's Miss Pam with some of her commission jobs, and one of the guys picking it up and being very happy. There's Tom and Lester with some commission jobs. That's my friend Rose. She came in town. She was living in Texas, now back in California. So hopefully those signs have made their way to California now. And every once in a while, I'd actually run into the sign painters doing signs out in the wild. So that's Lester up on the ladder, repainting a sign, and Tom painting the sign of a restaurant. And I'd bike around and try to see Lester every once in a while, every couple of weeks at least, especially when he didn't have a place to stay. I'd try to bring him some food, some money, some paints, whatnot. And I'd often see him with people. So on the far left, that's Lester with John Cannon, whose name is on the wall where I first saw Lester's name. So that was exciting to put another name to a face. Also got to meet one of Lester's sisters, Alice. And there's June again with Lester with one of Lester's sketches. And also see Lester, at different places where he'd painted. So I make sure to get a picture of him at those places. Also took him to a couple of corner stores so he could do signs inside. So there he's on the top left, he's making a poster. You call those posters meat board special or meat board specials, because they're always on paperboard and usually for some kind of meat special. The middle photo that when I screen printed that project in the screen printing class, I made some T-shirts of Lester, so gave him a few. And often Lester would have very humorous musings that he would paint on either wood or cardboard or corrugated plastic signs and have on his basket, or not a basket. He'd say a basket is for Easter. He'd call it a buggy. So his grocery buggy had these different signs. And that's one of my favorite cell phones, the modern day earache. And also, I don't know how I came about this, but at some point I saw one of Lester's signs in the background of a bounce video. And so see in the middle, it's one of the walls that was at that housing project. And I had a shot of that exact same wall. So I went on YouTube and started watching all these different bounce videos. So bounce is a music style in New Orleans, a rap style. So I was going through all these different videos looking for things that I might have taken a picture of or might have Lester's sign. So I found a few, and lo and behold, I had pictures of those places already. So these I didn't even have to go back to photograph. I already had them. And Lester painted a tribute for my dad for me. And then in March of 2017, Lester passed away. Unfortunately, he was a bit of an alcoholic and lived on the street a lot and just hung out on the street. And one of the local TV stations did a story about him, and Doug McCash from the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com did a story about his passing. And I was able to go to his funeral. I met another sister of his, Carolyn, befriended her. Later in that same year, in 2017, I was doing I had started a digital design program at Tulane, using my tuition waiver as a Tulane employee. And a couple of projects I did that year were designing some, like a fake magazine cover and a website. And these were both for a art show that I did at a restaurant called Kebab on St. Claude, New Orleans. It's called Signs and Vines because obsessed with handpainted signs. And all these signs that I showed were by Lester, and also Cat's Claw, which was brought into New Orleans as an ornamental, but took over, and many of the decaying houses were covered by it. And so I took pictures of lots of Cat's Claw. So this art showed Signs and Vines. And there on the left, you can kind of see some of the different houses covered in Cat's Claw vines with the yellow bloom. And then the next year, I had another art show, Civic Pride. So I had different things of doing rubbings of manhole covers, water meter covers, but also included photos of some of Miss Pam's signs, because she was still working for the city at this point. I'd found different signs that she did around town for the city. Holt Cemetery, I don't know if you know that cemetery, it's next to Delgado College and next to City Park, New Orleans. It's not pauper, what's a good word for it, Jason?
Indigent.
Yeah. People that don't have enough money to do full headstones. So a lot of the headstones were just wood, hand-painted, but she painted the city sign for it that said Holt Cemetery, and other signs around town. And then in 2018, a friend of mine wanted to do a computer typeface based on Lester's sign style. And luckily, before Lester passed, I had him at some point a few years ago write out the alphabet on some paper for me. So I scanned that and sent that to my friend, and he turned it into a computer typeface called Carry Regular. And my friend's working on the script style of the typeface now. And then for one of my digital design classes, I did a typeface for Miss Pam's style. And since she signs all her stuff by Pam, I called the typeface by Pam. So there's 3 versions of it. Just the black, which has capital letters and lowercase letters. And I had her paint a board for me, which I got scanned at Tulane Library. And other versions, her shadow style. So I did a black with a red shadow and a red with black shadow. And a few months ago, I had Tom write out the alphabet for me. So this is what I'm working on now to make Tom's lettering into a computer typeface. I've already scanned it. Now I just got to get into Illustrator and tweak it and get it into the font making program. And then also made another website in a different class called signsandvines.com. It has bios about the 3 sign painters, has different articles linked to they've been mentioned in, got photos of cat's claw, etc. And a couple years ago, somebody emailed me wanting to film Tom and Pam making signs. I can't remember exactly what they were going to do with it, but they filmed like the whole day of Pam and Tom just painting different words and on different size boards. And then last summer, I had these big pieces of linoleum, 18 by 24, and I always wanted to go big, do something big. I just decided I was going to do corner stores. And I picked corner stores that all had signage by Lester Carey on them. So I picked a Chicken Mart, Family Discount, Magnolia Market, and the Chippewa Food Store. And used photos that I took as my model, my inspiration. And then these are the actual lino cuts that I did. Each one took at least 20 hours to carve. And then to print these, I didn't print these in my house. I only have a small press, baby press. But my friend Chris, who I mentioned at the beginning, he's a printmaker too now, and he has a bigger press about this wide. So I printed all these at his studio. And all these are in the gallery. And also had a show to debut these at a restaurant called Satsuma in the Bywater neighborhood of New Orleans. And just this past spring, I was cleaning. I have a double shotgun in New Orleans on Magazine Street, the Lower Garden District. My tenants moved out back in the fall sometime. They left it a mess. So I'd been cleaning, painting the walls. One night when I was painting the walls, I decided, screw it. I don't want to deal with tenants anymore. So I was going to at least try a pop-up. So I had a pop-up sale in the front 2 rooms and had a sidewalk sale with it. That went so well, I decided okay, I think I'm going to just keep this and make it bigger and do a full thing. So now I have a studio and gallery on the other half of my house, so it's an easy commute. and also I'll work from home 2 days a week, so I'll work out of there, so I can double dip. So yeah, now I filled the front 3 rooms with all my work, and some signs that Pam and Tom had painted. I have those for sale. There's one of the rooms. And there's also one room I turned into a rotating gallery. And the first show that I had was Fat Kids, which was one of the street artists that had been documenting years ago. He'd gone by the name Tard back then, and then changed his style, got better at his art. And Fat Kids was the debut show at the NOLA Nacular Gallery. And for this show, I did a lino cut and as a collaboration. He did embellishments on it. So there's a little, and this one he did a little carrot in the window there. And for the art shows, I have an opening and usually have a closing reception. The openings are every first Saturday. Receptions are usually the last Saturday of the month. And I think every time Miss Pam has come, set up, she's been doing custom signs, and she's brought some signs that she's already painted to sell. So if anyone's interested in having a custom sign by either Pam or Tom, you can contact me. They'll be more than happy to do a sign for you. Here's Tom. Visited him recently. This is probably 2-3 weeks ago. Just stopped in. Here he is. He was working on a self-portrait. I gave him an old overhead projector, and this is, on the right is a transparency that I made for him of a photo that he gave to me of him himself. So he projected that on this, I guess, garbage bag and started painting himself there. During Christmas, before Christmas, I was doing some art markets, and somebody came to market and asked me. I had prints of my big lino cuts, the big corner stores. Someone saw those and said that she'd seen them at Satsuma, and wanted to know if I would do a commission piece for her because she has a bookstore and a corner store. So I worked on this lino cut sometime in the spring. So her business is called Parlor Books, which is like a two-room apartment where she lives and has the bookstore in. So the front room is the bookstore, and she lives in the back room. But the building is Frady's Corner Store, where they serve like po' boys and other hot meals. And there's a couple of new lino cuts I'm currently working on, haven't printed yet. But the top one is a store that had a lot of signs by Tom on it. So when I print them, so I have to print these, I'm going to have Tom do some embellishment on them. And the bottom one is the Rainbow Grocery, where I got Miss Pam's business card. So I'll have her do some embellished signs on there too. So do some collaborations and work with the sign printers and some artistic endeavors. So yesterday, as I was driving in town, I was coming up one, and noticed this sign. I didn't take a picture when I first passed it, but I was definitely going to go back yesterday at some point. But then when I was talking to Leslie, who's helping me with the art show, she was telling me the story behind the sign. There's some, I think it was an NSU student that the owner had got to do the sign years ago, I guess. And she knew the student and said her name, but I forget what her name was. And but she said that the student didn't really enjoy doing the big mural type signs. So yesterday afternoon, I went thrifting. I went to the Goodwill over there and stopped by there and took these pictures and got a small daiquiri. It was happy hour, so everything was $1 off. And this morning, as I was leaving the hotel, I was pulling out of the parking lot. I look up the streets. I see this old gas station, service station. So I'm always drawn by interesting things. So I start driving that way. Go by there, like further down the street. See, there's a street light. Could be businesses over there. So it pulls me even further down there. So I go down that street a block or two. So then I decide that I need to start heading this way. So I turn down 5th Street maybe. And I first see maybe a church or something with some statues outside, and so that pulls me that way. But before I even get to that, I look over to my right and see this sign. So pull over and take this sign. So hand-painted signs, unique architecture, just pulls me around different cities, especially in the South. I love just starting somewhere, picking a place to start driving around and see what pulls me around. And also being from Memphis, I would go back for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And usually on Thanksgiving morning or Christmas morning, I get up early when the streets are empty, and that's the best time to go to businesses and take pictures. No, there's nobody in front of them, nobody's bothering you. So yeah, this was just a happy accident today. That's it. Thank you.